Good afternoon. I am Dr. Sonia Whitaker, National Education Policy Director for Push Excel, and I have the honor of being joined today by Dr. Julianne Malvo. Dr. Malvo is the president of Push Excel, as well as the newly appointed Dean of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA. We are also joined by Dr. Donna Leak, and Dr. Leak is Superintendent of Schools for South Village School District 168, located in Illinois, as well as Vice Chair of the Illinois State Board of Education, amongst, like Dr. Malvo, many other credentials. We are excited that you have decided to join us today. The title for our session is Push for Excellence, Going Against the Grain to Accomplish the Goal of Equity in Education. In alignment with our session title, it is important for us to share with you that in December of 2020, Push for Excellence launched our national town hall series called Shaping America's Education Agenda. The purpose of today's session, in alignment with the work that we've done all year, is to emphasize the need to remain vigilant in our efforts to ensure that all students gain equitable access to a quality education. In our attempts to do so, the session today will begin with a conversation between the three of us, in which we will identify national efforts which prove counterproductive as it relates to achieving the aforementioned goal. More specific, our conversation will be targeted toward addressing what we refer to as political hot topics, one of them being critical race theory. The concern is that decisions that bar teachers from engaging in important conversations could actually and will actually prove counterproductive to our efforts. And so, without further ado, Dr. Leak and Dr. Malvo, I'd like for you to please share with our viewing audience why this work or why this topic is of great importance to you.
Let's begin by just looking at the demographic shifts that our nation is experiencing, and at the same time, the pushback on the part of many to ignore these demographic shifts, but not only to ignore the shifts, but to ignore history. Enslavement happened. The annexation of Mexico to Texas out in California happened. The importation of Chinese men to California to build railroads happened. But people don't want to talk about it. People talk about our country being great. If it's great, it's also greatly flawed. And that's the part that we have to deal with. But you have some people who are Caucasian people who would prefer just to have the sanitized version of history. Critical race theory is about understanding how race and racism are at the foundation of every single one of our institutions. Every single one of our institutions. And once we understand that, it doesn't mean that we should beat ourselves up or feel guilty. It means that we can fix it. And so that's why I'm here as a dean of a college of ethnic studies, that's only the second one to be established in 50 years. It's important for me to empower my faculty to do their work around these issues that basically will inform curricula. Now, understand, no one is teaching K through 12 students critical race theory. The critical race theory does inform the work that many do as they look at the challenges of our nation.
So, and I want to add to that the whole idea about critical race theory, really, it boils down to this. We have been teaching history that was written by white men for white people from their perspective. And so if I were to tell the story of Christopher Columbus landing in the Americas from the indigenous people side of that story, it would not be the same wonderful, we came, we discovered, we broke bread, we learned how to eat together, we learned about corn. That would not be their side of that story. And so the struggle that I think that we are having universally across the country is there's a unique struggle with how can there be other sides of a story that we've been telling for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years from this perspective. So and for white people across the country, they feel like, well, we've included Black people, we've included Asian Americans, but what they haven't realized is that they've been talking about us and not having us tell the story through us. It's a big difference to tell a story about somebody as opposed to somebody telling their own story. And so that's where I think we're having this clash, is that it has been so ingrained that history is his story. That's why it's called history. It's his story that he's been telling all these years. And now we come to a moment in time that that's not okay anymore. It doesn't even make sense anymore. And the other part about this racism piece, and I think Dr. Malveaux, with her position, is really going to take this to the next level. Racism is not an event, it's a system.
Yes.
It is a systematic way of processing everything that we do that ensures that the white privileged power stays in their position through the system. And I don't even think they realize it. So we're at a turning point right now. And as an educator, it is my responsibility on my watch to do something about it.
You know, Sonia, Dr. Whitaker, history, when I was president of Bennett College, I used to always tell the young ladies, history belongs to she who holds the pen. Because as Dr. Leek has said, it's his story. So women are all too often peripheralized in the telling of history. But there's an African proverb that says, until the lion learns to read, the hunter will always be the hero. So of course, you have people now who are acting as if slavery was benign, enslavement was benign, that women wanted to be kept in their place. We can just go down the list and debunk these myths, but the process of debunking, especially in the post-Trump era, has been an attempt to continue to whitewash. So the most recent state, Nebraska, they have legislation pending, and they're not the first state. Oklahoma was one of the first states, but they have legislation pending that would prevent the teaching of anything that had anything to do with race. Now,
and so that's
ironies. Just think about the ironies of this. If you think about Oklahoma being one of the first states, so Tulsa, Black Wall Street was destroyed, but they don't want to hear it because they don't want
to hear about
white children to feel guilty. Well,
right.
But if these white children feel guilty, maybe they'll also feel motivated to basically unpack the system. Dr. Whitaker, you did a brilliant job, you and Dr. Leek, when we brought our young people together with one of our education town halls. Now, I remember a young white woman saying, it's more important for me to learn about Native American history than it is for me to learn physics.
The quadratic formula. That's what she said. Why am I learning the quadratic? Why is it more important for me to know about the quadratic formula than for me to know about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
And this young lady, again, she got it. She really got it. And I'm not saying if she wants to be an engineer, she better learn the quadratic formula. But
I'm a math teacher, so I want her to learn it too.
but what she was really saying is that our education is incomplete. See, white people can't deal with that. When you start talking about a number of things, they can't deal with the fact that this is their legacy. Their legacy is brutality. Their legacy is inhumanity. I don't want anybody to feel bad. I just want them to embrace that legacy and say, so now what can we do about this?
What can we do different?
This equation?
That's right.
That's
right.
How do we move forward?
So thank you for that, Dr. Malveaux. I'm going to follow up with you on that in just a minute. Dr. Leek, I have shared with many that you and I have been given, and it looks like we'll continue to be given, the very distinct honor of conducting statewide presentations on the topic of what's race got to do with it. So I want to start by giving you a heads up that I want to refer to that. I'll take a step back and suggest that clearly there's a difference between critical race theory and culturally responsive teaching. And across the nation, as we began to look at newspaper articles, even as far as advocates for culturally responsive teaching, even as far as the teachers' unions are really pushing back right now, not because they want to teach critical race theory, because as Dr. Malveaux has eloquently stated, that's not what's happening in our K-12 classrooms. advocates, such as those on the side of the teachers union, are concerned that this political conversation will inadvertently result in teachers not having the training that they need to ensure that they connect the curriculum to the spirits and the lives of students of color and students experiencing the impact of poverty. That, number one, I would have to say, based on my research and following all of this, is the concern. You and I have had the honor of elevating the conversation about race in classrooms and race in schools. And so I just want to pull back and give you some wide space right now to talk about what we've been able to do, and just to give our participating audience some feedback about how you think that's going, and what you've learned from those staff members about how important conversations about race is relevant to their work.
You know, the first thing I have to acknowledge that's very interesting is that we've been doing this work in the virtual world, which is very different than doing this work in person. And to still see the number of responses in chat rooms from white teachers in areas that they don't even have African American or children of color, to see their responses in the chat room, just saying, thank you, I hadn't thought about this, I'm going to read this, I'm going to do this, has been enormous in my perspective, because you can get that kind of feedback when we're in person, but to actually be able to get that feedback in this format, I think has shown that it really is a relevant topic that we have to stay focused on, and really laser-like focused on for teachers. Because what we're finding is, as we're doing this work, is that a lot of our white teachers, they just don't, and I hate to say it like this, they just don't know. They honestly are just not aware, because they live in this world, versus as Black, you know, we got a code switch. We got to go over here. If you went to HBCU, then you got to know how to deal with a predominantly white, a PWI, right? We got to do this all the time. They don't. And so what I'm finding is that we're having some real honest conversations, in some cases, some tough conversations, and little things that I don't even think they realize. Like, we talked about books, talked about the number of books from the study in New York that had animals, more animals on the cover of books for children than children of color or people of color on the covers of the books. For just think about that. I'm reading more stories about chickens, goats, cows, and pigs than I am reading stories about children who look like me or families who look like me, and what that does for a child's mindset. And so to even have, because in one of the sessions we did, they were saying, we're going to have to go back and really look at our books. Like, we weren't even thinking about this. And so I think what we've been able to do, Dr. Whitaker, you and I, is to roll the rock back and say, guess what? It's a whole bunch of stuff under this rock, and we're going to talk about it. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be comfortable. In some cases, you might feel like, well, I'm not a racist. Nobody's calling you a racist. That's not it at all. What we're saying to you is, this exists, and this is your opportunity to do something about it. And I just think, and what I really like about the way we present it is, Doc and I we kind of start and bring you along in a story, and we include, both of us include our stories in terms of how we landed in front of you and how we got here. Like, I didn't just wake up, I'm Dr. Leek. No, I was born in rural Tennessee. I mean, so we go through our stories. We share, here's how we got to this moment. And then to have staff members, and I think it's been really crucial that we've had administrators, teachers, we've had all layers, superintendents that have been in our sessions, so that we are presenting and sharing out with a wide variety. The other part of it too is, I sit on the board of directors for the National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics. And we at the board level, at the national board level, decided to take on this whole what's race got to do with it. And to hear my colleagues who've known me for years say things like, I just didn't think about it. I just honestly didn't know. And I'm so much more aware. Because I said, when we go to a restaurant and we walk in, I'm the only Black girl there. I know I'm the only Black person there. Like, you all don't even think about it. And so the other part too that I think is really crucial is that we are taking away permission to say, oh, you're a different kind of Black person.
Yes.
We're taking away that permission. You don't get to say, oh, you're different, because no. At the end of the day, I am Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Malveaux. We're Black women, period. You don't
Right.
get to you don't get the permission to try to segment us. That's not acceptable. So I'm looking forward to the work. It's grueling. I can't wait till we're in person. I'm gonna be honest.
I know. Soon, September.
Yes, I can't wait for that.
Yes.
Well, the
Dr.
whole
Mal-
texture will be different. The texture of doing this in person will be very different because years ago, not years ago, but maybe 5, I did a training with the National Education Association. I did a whole thing with them about race. And what was interesting is looking at the facial expressions of the people that you really probably can't see.
The body language.
So at one point, I said to people, I said, so everybody's cool? Everybody's like, y'all not cool. Y'all so not cool.
Right.
And we had to, let's go back and do this again, because if nobody's ticked off, y'all not cool.
Right. Dr. Malveaux, can I ask you, in your role as Dean, and congratulations, of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA, can you share with us, what is your greatest hope for what will be accomplished on your watch as it relates to ensuring that his story or her story is told?
Oh, great question.
I love that question.
I met with some of my team this morning and just got permission yesterday from the provost to start searching for a tenured professor of American Indian Studies. I have 3 departments that report to me, Pan-African Studies, Asian American Studies, and Chicano Latinx Studies. And so now I have permission. The charter calls for a Department of American Indian Studies. One of the things I forgot about academia, because I've been away for a little while, is how slow we tend to move. To get that department up and running, I think would be, I would be over the moon. I would really be over the moon. The other thing I think is to get these 4 departments working together. We tend to go into our silos as Black folks, as Chicano Latinx folks, as Asian American folks, and we need to work together because predatory capitalism affects us all and in different ways. As an example, Dr. Whitaker, August 3rd is Black Women's Pay Equity Day. It's the day when Black women, if you worked all year and then until August 3rd, you would then make the same amount of money as a white man did. So you had to work another 7 months or so. But what's also interesting about that Pay Equity Day is that it's earlier for Asian American women, but it's still not the same. And it's later for Chicano women, and it's later for Native American women. But what we have in common is that we all are basically dealing with this capitalist patriarchy in terms of what our wages look like. So to get these folks to work together and to really look at what we have in common, as well as our differences are, I think would be, to me, a great possibility. I'm excited about the work. I get up every morning just excited. I mean, I miss, a lot of stuff from Washington, but this is just, it's a wide open tableau for me to basically deal with.
Well, and we're excited about it, and we will definitely have to have another opportunity for you to talk with us about how it's going again as it relates to accomplish that goal. We have no doubt that you're going to do that. Before I segue into the second part of our session today, I'm going to bring Dr. Leek back to talk about the students. Now, what you're going to see, as is indicated in the program booklet, is snippets of very important conversations that took place throughout our town hall series. And the purpose of I call it snippets of information, they're actually carefully selected, the parts of those town halls that you will hear for the purpose of supporting the conversation that just took place. As has been indicated, you'll not only hear from adults, but you're going to hear student perspectives as it relates to what they think about the importance of being provided an opportunity to know what America's real story is. I'll share that the students' voices that you will hear are those of students that are members of the Illinois State Board of Education's Student Advisory Council. And I'll ask Dr. Leek for just a brief moment here to just tell you about this body of students, again, recognizing that you'll hear from them and adults, and then I'll turn you over to the second part of the program. Dr. Leek?
Sure. So one of the things the Illinois State Board does have is the Student Advisory Council, and they're made up of high school students from all over the state of Illinois, from rural communities, urban, suburban, just all over. And they have been working together for years. I've been on the state board now for about 2.5 years, and they've presented previously. And so here's the interesting thing that happened this year. These young people in particular took the strategic plan that the state board put in place and really honed in on the equity pieces. And they presented to the state board. And when they were done, I was actually dumb. My mouth was open, because what they presented was very pure, very honest, and very insightful to be young people in high school. They talked about, and that's what we were talking about earlier, they talked about the fact that why are we learning these things like the quadratic formula? And again, I'm a former high school math teacher, so I love it. But to have them point out and say, how is it that I'm not being taught about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma? I should know that as a part of my history, as part of the fabric of who I am. And for that to be white children who were sharing that out, that wasn't even our Black children. And so what I've discovered with this group of young people is that it feels promising to me that we're in a space that if we can start to really get our children, see, for us, we're old, right? It's a little harder for us. If we can really transition and get our young people to start thinking differently the way these young people have shared, and then for them to push that out to their peers and then younger people, that we can leave a legacy. That's what I'm talking about, our watch. We can leave a legacy of a different conversation that's happening. It doesn't take away what happened, it changes the conversation. And so when you hear from these young people later on, they're speaking their truth from their voice. And when they came in and presented to the Illinois State Board of Education with no qualms, they came in like, this is what we know. This is what we should be learning. And then they looked to us and said, now what are you going to do about it as adults to make sure that we're learning what we need to know? Because we didn't even know what we didn't know. And now we found out that y'all weren't getting it to us. So now what are you going to do? So that's our watch as the adults. I got some promising young people that are holding our feet to the fire, that are saying, you cannot continue to do what we've always done. We are not those young people. So we thought we were bad coming up. We out protesting. These young people are on a whole different, they're like, no, we don't need to just protest. I'm gonna need for you to step up and figure out what's being taught in these schools, because that's where we're walking out of the school, taking that with us. So we're gonna need for y'all to figure that out and make sure that it's accurate and that it's correct and that it honors the way that we need to integrate our fabric of life as a country.
Absolutely.
Can't wait for y'all to hear from them.
Absolutely. And there you have it.
They were fantastic. Again, they really were fantastic.
They are. They're amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies. There you have it. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, Dr. Donna Leek, thank you for sharing your expertise. You'll actually hear some more of their expertise because their voices are also included throughout all aspects of the second part of this programming option. So again, thank you for tuning in to Push for Excellence, going against the grain to accomplish the goal of equity in education.